If you win this coding competition, you'll get a free trip to Las Vegas for 2 people for 2 nights. Listen up. Now, the competition I'm talking about here is hosted by Bright Data and BattleBots. Yes, BattleBots, the show that you probably watched when you were a kid, where there's a ton of metallic robots fighting each other in a ring. They weigh like 250 pounds. They have swords, hammers, saws, all of this kind of stuff. It's super fun. I'll throw a few clips on screen so you can see what I'm talking about. Now, Bright Data is a key sponsor of this event, and they put together a really cool competition that I want to make you aware of in case you're looking for something to build and you want to actually have some stakes. Now, you can win a VIP BattleBots weekend in Las Vegas by building a developer project that uses Bright Data and pulls BattleBots web data. I'm going to show you an example of what this looks like later and the project I would build if I was trying to win this competition, but this is completely free, no catch, you don't need to pay for anything, and a massive shout out to Bright Data for being a long-term partner of my channel and having opportunities like this. So what is the deal here? Well, you can win a round-trip flight and hotel for 2, VIP passes to the finals or semifinals, and exclusive behind-the-scenes pit access, and a bunch of other stuff that I'm sure they're not putting on the website. All you need to do is build a project as I'm going to describe here, publish it anywhere, and just leave a hashtag and then submit your entry. You'll be entered to win, and to be honest, there's a pretty good chance that you could win this if you build something even decent, as I'm going to show you here. So if you're looking for an excuse to build something, hopefully this video came at the right time. Let me show you an example of something that I built to give you a bit of inspiration, and I'm going to walk through the full architecture of the application because it's pretty complicated to give you hopefully some inspiration and a sense of how you could build a similar thing. Okay. So what I've got here is a BattleBots AI fight predictor. Pretty straightforward, but the idea is that you can choose between one of the 25 or 24 BattleBots that exist. So I could choose maybe Uppercut and Bite Force here, and I can just make a prediction, and using AI and a bunch of data, which I'm going to show you in a second, we can see which one is most likely to win. Now you'll see that all of these BattleBots have different kind of mechanisms, weapons, whatever, and there's a bunch of information online about them. There's a huge community, there's like a wiki that goes through all of the stats, the win rate, the record, all of that, and I've essentially written a program that pulls all of that data, analyzes it together, and then uses AI to predict which one will win. You can see that I've pulled all of the stats of all of the bots down here. I have all of the match history, so I can go through all of the pages and see who won, who lost, if it was a draw, what series they were in. I pulled a bunch of sentiment data from Reddit, which we'll look at in a second, and then as soon as the prediction's done, it looks like it is here, you can see that it gives us a percentage chance. So it says that it thinks Bite Force will win with 76% chance using GPT 5.4, and then if we go through, it has a bunch of different factors on why it believes this, the narrative breakdown, all of the facts that it found, all of the sentiment that it analyzed. I'm going to show you exactly how I built this because I think this is a project that would have a chance to win if it was submitted. So that's a quick walkthrough of what this application does and kind of what I decided to build as my sample submission. I'll show you a few other things from the community, and then I want to dive into the architecture here because you can see I used a ton of different tools to build this out, and I want to give you a bit of a kind of tutorial on how you could do something similar. So here's another example of what someone in the community built. It's called BattleBots Hub. I'll leave a link to it if you want to check it out in the description. If you sign in, you can see there's a full community hub. There's all these different bots that are being predicted. We can view full rankings of all of the bots and all of their different records. There's an AI predictor, so similar to what I have, you can choose like 2 different bots and then you can run a simulation and see which one is most likely to win. And this looks a lot better than mine in terms of the graphics. We can go to the rankings. We can see a full log of all of the activity. Well, I'm not sure if that's working. There's a deep search, so we could search for a bot like Tombstone, and it's going to scan the network and pull data about it. If we go to the community hub, it pulls a bunch of Reddit comments and information so we can see what people are talking about and kind of the sentiment of these different bots. Just giving you a quick example so you get a sense of what you could build. Obviously, be creative, build something unique. And if you're looking for the judging criteria, if you scroll here and you go down, it says that it's going to be judged on clarity and creativity, technical execution, real-world impact, and then make sure that it's published using this hashtag. Not required, but obviously it says it's noticed. Okay, so let me go through the architecture of the application that I built, show you a few code samples, and demonstrate how you could do something like this. Okay, so let me go through the architecture of my application, and again, how you could build this yourself. Now, first, we need a bunch of data, right? I can't predict which BattleBots are going to win unless I know, first of all, what BattleBots exist. I know their records, I know their weapons, I know their history, and then importantly, I have fan sentiment analysis as well. So sentiment analysis is determining, do fans think that this BattleBot is good? Do they think it's bad? What do they think of the weapon? How do they think of particular matchups? Combining this information with the actual raw statistics gives you a lot more information to make a more educated decision. So the basic idea is we gather all of this data from the web, we store it in a database so we can go back and look at it, we analyze this information with AI, and then ultimately that gives us the predictions. Now, how do I do that? Let me go through the tech stack and all of the tools that I used, because there are quite a few. So from the data collection side here, I'm using Bright Data and specifically their Web Unlocker API. Now, the reason you need to use something like this is that if I just try to create like a Playwright or Puppeteer scraper and I go through hundreds of different pages or I try to pull all of the matchup details, I'm going to run into rate limits, IP bans, captchas, blocks, etc. Bright Data essentially circumvents that. It connects you to a huge proxy network, so you're using a bunch of different devices at scale in parallel as many times as you want to pull all of the information reliably and not get blocked when you try to enter these pages. Because a lot of times the websites will detect you as a bot. Bright Data essentially prevents that. And it's kind of funny they're partnered up with BattleBots, given that they're trying to not be detected as a bot. Anyways, if we look at some of the code here, you can see that I put a simple Bright Data client together where we just connect to an API, and we can essentially just send a network request to the Bright Data API. It will go grab all of the information from the page for us and then just pull it down so we can parse it as HTML and fetch all of the info that we need. So you can see it just fetches the HTML right from the pages that we want to scrape, and we can scrape as many pages at the same time in parallel as we want. Now, what I was doing is scraping all of the individual bots here. I was scraping all of the match information from the wiki. I was scraping the sentiment from Reddit. This is one that's typically pretty tricky to scrape, especially if you're not using a network like this or a tool like Bright Data. And then I was grabbing some more data here specifically from the tournament pages so I can get each season and I can get all of the different, bots that we need. So that's kind of the data collection side. After I did that, I also needed to parse all of the data. So yeah, I pulled all of it, but then I needed to parse the bots, parse the matches, and parse the sentiment and store that in a database. Okay, so that's kind of the first stage here. We go to battlebots.com, go to the wiki, collect all of this information, parse it so it's in a clean format, but now I need to set it up so that AI can actually use it. Now, this is too much data to just feed all at once to an AI model. So what I did is I set up something called a vector database. Now, a vector database is a really fast database that's able to search for information using vectors. Vectors are kind of a mathematical concept we don't need to get into, but they allow me to search for similarity between different text, strings, or names and pull relevant results without having to search the entire database. So effectively, if I'm trying to predict, Bite Force versus Bloodsport or something, I can go to my vector database where I've taken all of this data and embedded it, turned it into vectors. I can search for any sentiment about Bite Force. I can search for any matches or information about Bloodsport, pull all of them and then pass them to an LLM in a prompt so it can give me a full analysis. And that's what you saw previously. So in order to do that, when all of this data came in, I vectorized it using OpenAI embeddings and then stored it in our database. That then leads to the next step, which is RAG, or Retrieval Augmented Generation, where effectively what we do is we go to the database, we use a similarity algorithm, and we pull through all of the different chunks or embeddings with the information that we want. So we just search and say, hey, I'm looking for information on Bloodsport, or whatever the name of this bot is. Yeah, Bloodsport. And it will pull all of the relevant results for us so we can then pass it to an LLM. So that's kind of the data collection. Then we're gathering the data for the individual bots. And then what we do is we pass this to an LLM. So in my case, I was using GPT 5.4, but you could use anything that you want. And we essentially give a nice long prompt. So if we go here, you can see I have a bunch of prompts that we pass here to the LLM. And we say, hey, you're an expert BattleBots fight analyst with deep knowledge. Use all of this information and tell us who do you think is going to win and give us a prediction. And then I get it to return us all of this data in this response schema where we have the winner, confidence, method, key factors, and all of the different fields that I want it to return. So this is an interesting thing with AI models. You can force them to give you a response in a particular format, which we're doing right here, so that I can parse it out and display it on the UI, as you saw, nice and clear and easy to read. And then after all that's working, it's really just a matter of stitching everything together, creating a nice user interface, making a clean kind of React application. And honestly, AI can handle a massive amount of that for you now if you just go and use Cursor, Claude, whatever. And I even set up a live activity thing here so you can watch kind of in real time as it pulls the different info and you can see how long it's taking, XYZ. Now, in terms of pulling the data here, that's probably the most important part. Like I said, I was using Bright Data's direct API access to do that. You can get free credits by using my link below if you want to mess around with it and build your own project. And essentially all you would do is you just go to the dashboard, go to this web access page right here. You can make a new API. You can just say that you want to use the Web Unlocker API, give it a name, call it whatever you want, and then it will just give you access to an API key, and then it will give you a sample network request, as you'll see here in a second, and you can just send a request for any URL that you want, and again, it will unblock it and give you access to all of the information. You can see it gives me kind of the sample curl request that I can send, and then obviously you can wrap this in like a Python script or whatever you want. Just make sure you include your API key, and then you can just pull all of the data and it will be unblocked for you. You can also scrape from different countries if you want to see different languages or results from different geolocations. You can set all of that up. I'm just not going to show it to you right here. So in my case, I had the BattleBots on locker, and if we scroll down, you can see that we had a bunch of different info that I scraped, goes through all of the successful results. And then this cost me like $1 or $2. But again, I didn't need to pay for it because I had the free credits from Bright Data, which you can get from the link below. So guys, that's pretty much it. I'm going to leave all of the code for this application in the description in case you want to check out how I did it. I'm not going to be submitting this as an official result because I don't want to try to beat you guys. The competition is for you, it's not for me. But if you're looking for an excuse to build something, you want a cool competition to enter and a chance to win a really cool experience, I definitely would consider applying. And again, even if you don't win, I think it's still always just fun to build something out, and this gives you a good excuse to do it. So anyways, guys, that's all I had for you. If you liked the video, leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.